She had boarded the plane quietly, dressed simply, carrying nothing that hinted at the power she held. To everyone else, she looked like just another passenger taking her seat after a long day. But when the flight attendant stopped her and said, "Ma'am, there's been a mistake. That seat isn't available for you," the air around her instantly changed. Passengers nearby leaned in, curiosity turning into discomfort as she calmly showed her boarding pass. Clearly marked with her assigned seat, what should have been a routine flight suddenly became tense. The staff exchanged nervous glances, whispering among themselves, insisting she move without offering a clear reason. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She simply asked one question that would soon unravel everything. "Can you please explain why?" That question hung in the cabin like a warning. No one understood yet. What they didn't know was that this woman wasn't just any traveler. She was a powerful CEO, a leader whose signature influenced contracts, partnerships, and careers, including some tied directly to this airline. As minutes passed, a phone call was made from the cockpit. Faces drained of color, movements froze. And in that moment, the entire airline realized they had made a mistake they couldn't undo so easily. The woman remained standing beside her seat, calm on the outside, though her mind was already replaying moments like this from years ago. She had worked hard to reach the top of the corporate world, learning early that respect was not always given freely. Tonight, she had chosen this flight for its convenience, unaware it would become another quiet test of dignity and patience. Around her, the cabin felt smaller, the silence broken only by the low hum of the engines and the uneasy shifting of passengers in their seats. A senior flight attendant approached, her voice softer now, almost unsure. She explained there had been a priority adjustment, a vague phrase that raised more questions than answers. The CEO listened carefully, noticing how no one would meet her eyes. A man across the aisle pulled out his phone, sensing something unusual unfolding. Another passenger whispered that delays like this never ended well. In the cockpit, the captain stared at a name on the screen, one he had seen before in company emails and board updates. A message was sent to airline operations, and within seconds, replies flooded back. The crew's posture changed, urgency replacing confidence. Still, no one spoke openly. The woman simply waited, knowing the truth was close, and when it surfaced, it would change the flight forever. The delay began to ripple through the cabin. A businessman near the window sighed loudly, checking his watch, while a young mother tried to distract her child from the growing tension. From their seats, no one knew the full story, only that something felt off. The woman at the center of it all stayed composed, her hands relaxed at her sides, her eyes moving slowly from one uniform to another. She had learned that moments like this often revealed more about people than words ever could. Behind the scenes, pressure mounted. An operations manager questioned how a confirmed seat assignment could suddenly vanish. Another voice suggested a quick fix, anything to keep the flight on schedule. Yet each suggestion seemed to create more problems. The name on the manifest carried weight, and everyone knew it. One wrong move could turn a small incident into a serious corporate issue. The flight attendant returned again, offering apologies without answers. The CEO nodded politely, but her silence spoke volumes. She wasn't demanding special treatment. She was demanding fairness. Across the aisle, a passenger quietly recorded, sensing this wasn't just a seating issue anymore. It was about accountability, power, and respect. As the plane remained grounded, the tension thickened, and the question lingered in the air. Who would take responsibility before this situation spiraled beyond control? The cabin lights dimmed slightly as boarding time stretched far beyond normal. Whispers grew louder, and impatience mixed with unease. The woman finally took a slow breath, not to calm herself, but to stay grounded. She had faced boardrooms tougher than this, yet the quiet resistance in this narrow aisle felt heavier. Every second that passed made the mistake harder to hide. In the cockpit, the captain received a direct call from airline headquarters. His expression shifted from confusion to concern, then to disbelief. The name he repeated softly carried authority far beyond this flight. Policies were reviewed, logs rechecked, and a supervisor demanded to know who made the call to deny the seat. No one wanted to answer. The truth was closing in, and there was no graceful exit left. A senior manager hurried down the jet bridge. His footsteps rushed, his ties slightly undone. He paused before entering the cabin, aware that every eye would soon turn toward him. The flight attendants straightened, their earlier confidence replaced with fear. Passengers sensed the shift, phones discreetly raised, hearts pounding with curiosity. The woman looked up as the manager stepped inside. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and in that silence, the power balance changed. The plane felt frozen, waiting for the next words that would decide everything. The manager cleared his throat, ready to speak, when his phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen, and whatever color remained in his face vanished. This wasn't just about a seat anymore. A second message had come through, flagged urgent, linking this flight to a pending partnership review scheduled for the following week. The woman standing in the aisle wasn't only a CEO, she was the deciding voice on a deal the airline couldn't afford to lose. At the same time, another complication surfaced. A first-class passenger quietly refused to move, claiming loyalty, status, and special approval. The crew stood trapped between protocol and pressure, unsure which mistake would cost them more. The delay was now logged, the incident already reaching internal systems. There would be records. There would be questions. The woman watched it all unfold without saying a word. Her calm felt almost unsettling. She wasn't there to threaten or expose anyone. She was there to be treated like every other confirmed passenger. Yet the longer it dragged on, the clearer it became that someone had made a judgment they couldn't take back. Passengers leaned forward. Sensing the moment approaching, the manager took a step closer, his voice lowering, choosing his next words carefully. One sentence could fix this or turn it into a headline no one was ready for. The cabin held its breath, knowing the next move would change everything. The manager finally spoke, his voice steady but strained, announcing that a serious error had been made and the seat assignment would be honored immediately. The cabin released a quiet wave of breath. A flight attendant stepped aside, clearing the aisle, and the woman was invited to take her seat at last. As she moved forward, there was no triumph in her expression, only a quiet resolve. The airline had corrected its mistake, but the weight of what almost happened still hung in the air. Then came the unexpected turn. Instead of sitting down, she paused and asked for a moment to speak privately with the manager and the captain. Minutes later, an announcement echoed through the cabin. Calm, but firm. The flight would be delayed slightly longer due to a compliance review. Confused looks spread as passengers realized this wasn't over. What no one expected was her next move. She revealed her identity openly, not as a threat, but as context. She explained that moments like this shaped how companies were judged, not just by profits, but by how they treated people when no one important was supposed to be watching. The crew listened, stunned as she finally took her seat. Another message reached the manager's phone. The partnership review wasn't canceled, it was expanded. The incident would now be part of it. The plane prepared for takeoff, but everyone knew this flight had already changed the airline's future in ways they hadn't seen coming. As the plane finally lifted off, the tension slowly faded into a quiet reflection. Passengers settled back into their seats, some still glancing toward the woman who had unknowingly reshaped the entire flight. She sat calmly by the window, watching the clouds pass. Her thoughts focused not on power or position, but on how easily dignity could be tested in everyday moments. The incident had ended without shouting or scenes, yet its impact felt deeper than anyone expected. Later, the manager returned once more, this time offering a sincere apology, not scripted or rushed. She accepted it with a nod, reminding him that fairness should never depend on titles or influence. That simple exchange said more than any policy manual ever could. Around them, the crew moved with renewed care, aware that accountability had a human face. By the time the flight landed, news of the delay had already reached corporate offices. Reviews were launched, procedures questioned, and training plans quietly revised, not because of fear, but because of awareness. The airline had been given a rare chance to learn. As she stepped off the plane, unnoticed again, one truth lingered. Real leadership isn't about being recognized in moments of comfort, but about how you're treated when no one thinks your voice matters. And that lesson would travel far beyond this flight.